like a lot of people are just joining right now at the time of start. So thank you so much. This webinar tonight is about reuniting families and residents and what will it take. So we're going to start with Doris Grinspan, our CEO of RNAO, with some opening remarks. And then we're going to talk about COVID-19 Wave 1 discussion. So this is where we're inviting Ontario families, and we have Robin and Veronica. I think Susan might be joining us, and maybe there are more of you on the line who would like to speak or put questions in the chat box. And media, we're expecting some media to join us, so they might have some questions as well. So we're looking forward to hearing from you, hearing your thoughts, your ideas, and your questions, and having some discussion there. It's a really important aspect of tonight. Then we'll be moving on to talking about COVID-19 and Wave 2, and what is RNAO, what is our view on strengthening the health system for all? So Doris, again, we'll hear from her. Brittany Groom and Catherine Jewell, our health policy analysts, who are both registered nurses at RNAO. And then we're going to be hearing from Frida Poirier, a long-term care best practices coordinator, to talk about RNAO thoughts on reuniting families and residents. And Patricia Skull, who is the Chief Nursing Executive at the Salvation Army Grace Health Center, and talk about the Toronto Grace Health Center's experience with reuniting families and residents. And then we have a couple of calls to action, an action alert that our team will talk about, and also our mask-a-thon. That's the hashtag there, and we're encouraging people to take pictures of themselves or videos of themselves, their families, their parents and friends wearing masks. So welcome everyone. I hope that you can see on the bottom of your screen the opportunity to write in the chat box or Q&A and post your comments and your questions there. We want this to be a lively discussion today. And if you do want to speak, you can just write a note in the chat box, and or if you know how to raise your hand in the panelist or the participants list, you can do that. So we'll get to as many comments and questions as we possibly can tonight, but as you can see, we've got lots that we want to talk about and we want to hear from you. So I think I'll pass things directly over to you, Doris, with some opening remarks on reuniting families and residents, and what will it take?
Thank you so much. We thought that this is a very important topic for discussion. And we think that this is a topic that cannot be determined only by politicians or by policymakers or by health professionals, that this is a topic really where we need to hear residents as much as we can hear residents directly, and also a topic to where we need to hear the families. It has been a long haul for all of us, and especially it has been a long haul for residents of nursing homes, for their families. And here is why. Many of us were completely on board, myself included as the head of RNAO. RNAO for sure included our team when we heard that, you know, families will stay out for a bit because we need to protect your loved ones. And we feel that as a whole, we have let you down. That as a whole, we did not protect your loved ones. And RNAO was very early on sounding the alarm bell, very early on, saying, you know, the focus is by and large in hospitals. We need to look at what's going on with residents in nursing homes. Many of them, if they get COVID, will not be able to overcome COVID because of their complexities, because of their comorbidities, because they're older. Many of them will not want to go to a hospital, even if offered. And we didn't know even if we will have sufficient numbers of ventilators, if you may remember at the beginning. So we very early on actually said the first group that we need to take care of is actually residents in nursing homes. And we said that we needed to ensure that staff had universal masking when coming to work in a nursing home. And lo and behold, of course, they didn't have enough PPE. Then also with that, we were saying that isolation needs to happen in the nursing home, but not every nursing home could do that. We said that we needed to do surveillance testing. In many ways, what we said is, like in a house, in a home, you would not wait to have a fire to put your fire detector on. In a nursing home, you should not wait to have an outbreak to take care of your residents. So we said you need to take care of the residents before anything happens. And those were the measures that we said: universal masking, surveillance testing, early isolation, the resources that nursing homes needed. And you will hear later on from my colleagues that we have been talking about the resources in nursing homes for well over 15 years. So this week, in fact, the day that WHO called the epidemic a pandemic, I was presenting at yet another consultation with Minister Fullerton and her team on consultations about staffing of regulated staff in nursing homes. Again, you will hear about this later on again. And I remember when I saw in my BlackBerry that there was a pandemic, I stood up and I said, you know, you already heard for years all that we have to say, and here we go. There is a pandemic, as we predicted it will be, and we are not well prepared for that in relationship to residents in nursing homes. So very early on, we spoke about an over-reliance on hospital sector. We spoke an underutilization of primary care and home care. We spoke about really the abandonment and lack of attention to all vulnerable populations and the devastating effects that it would have. We predicted it would have devastating effects on residents in nursing homes and retirement homes. And what you have heard is exactly that. You have heard that there have been two pandemics, one for the general population and one for people in confined, in you know, close places. And of course, the worst hit of all is residents in nursing homes. The OECD number is 40% of all people that have succumbed to COVID-19 and die of the virus. 40% around the world are residents in nursing homes. Well, in Canada and in Ontario in particular, 80%. So double the OECD number, the great majority of people that we have lost. And yes, we believe that it could have been much, much better than that. So with that, we want to, first of all, open the conversation to you. I know that several families approached me. I spoke with several of you, and I'm very glad that some of you have come this evening, and I know others since have joined also. So we will do just put your hand on the chat, and we will let you speak first, the families of residents in nursing homes, and then we will open for media questions, and then we will move on. And I know Susan presented a long list of things we will accomplish, but the reality is we may not accomplish all. The key priority today is to listen to families in nursing homes, to questions from the media, to tell you a bit of what RNAO, where RNAO is heading with it. And if we can, we will share more. If not, the next event that we will do will be on this again. So let's open with that to the media. One thing that we forgot is that at the end, you need to bring some elements to cheer for residents and their families, as we do every single evening at 7:30. We cheer to healthcare workers. The cheer today goes to you, to keep your spirits up. and to ensure that we are responsive to what are your needs. So with that, let me open for questions. And I don't know if Imagine and Heather, if you can read us what questions we have on the chat and which families want to share.
And Doris, we do have Robin Nelson, Victoria Gerber, and Susan Mills with us.
Very good.
Family members, yeah.
Very good. And I know that Kelly, because Kelly connected with me today and she represents also seniors. So let's get going. Robin, if you can start, please. If we can unmute her so she can speak. Thank you, Susan.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, Robin. Good to see you virtual, not just an email. Maybe if we mute our videos will help, or is that, oh, that's good, I think.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I think let's try another family just for a minute to see if the issue is with Robin's mic, and then we can back to Robin, Susan.
Yes, so maybe Veronica can go next.
Sure.
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Okay. Hi there. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm an essential family caregiver for my mom, who's been in long-term care in Scarborough for 10 years already. And prior to the pandemic, I was visiting her every day, sometimes twice a day. I work as a real estate agent, so my time is flexible. And I always made a point to come at dinner to feed her because she is on a thick and fluid and puree diet, and it takes a long time and requires patience. And it's also, she's bedridden, it's also the time that she's usually most alert. So we both get benefit from it in terms of a visit, and also an essential need is met in terms of the feeding. And so it was very distressing in mid-March to be locked out, as it were, from the home. And the facility where my mom is continued to allow private sitters or paid caregivers to come in, and but they denied me. And so that was very upsetting, because really it's not about my rights to come into the home so much as my mother's right as a resident to continue to receive the level of care that she had been accustomed to for so long. And based only on the status, only on our family status, she was denied that care. Whereas another resident who paid for the care and had a stranger come in was still able to keep that level of care, for which I'm grateful. I'm not begrudging that those paid caregivers were allowed in. By all means, they deserve to be there, just as my mother deserved to have me there. Anyway,
Veronica, what was the rationale they gave you?
They claimed that the memo from the Chief Medical Officer of Health, the March 13th memo, was their basis, and yet I was in email contact with them from the beginning, pointing out that that March memo wasn't even a directive yet at that point. It was only a recommendation. And then, of course, the emergency order came in, and essential, it's all hinged on the terminology of essential visitors. And there's really no logical reason to allow a paid caregiver and deny a family caregiver. And I mean, I was there every day, and I have, you know, a cordial relationship with all the PSWs and the RPNs. So my presence in the home was not a contentious one; it was a supportive one, and still I was denied. I also had the patient ombudsman involved, and they contacted the home, and the home said my mother's essential needs were being met. And by that, they meant she was getting her meals and she was being bathed and fed, changed, and so forth. And so basically I was not needed. But of course, I would be there for my mother's psychosocial and spiritual support, as well as to ensure that her needs were met. You know, quite often I would come and she has 2 soaker pads under her. She should only have 1 at the most, or she needs to be repositioned, or she might have the wrong size brief on, or a variety of things. And so those were opportunities. The visits are opportunities to work together to make sure that, you know, the standards are kept up and her care is as it should be. And yeah, so there's really no logical reason. I believe it's really about control, and then the home wanting to minimize the number of people inside the home. But of course, I made the point early on that I could come even from, you know, between 5 and 6 every day. I would be my mother's, I would be a little cohort with me and my mom. I live alone. I work from home. I live a couple of blocks away. I don't take transit. I have my own vehicle, or I can walk there, but I could drive if that was safer. And so there was very little risk for me to come in on that basis. And I've been socially isolating ever since. So I don't even have like a bubble that I'm part of or anything like that.
Are you allowed now, Veronica, to go?
No, no.
No.
There were 2 times. Once in May, my mother choked. She needed to be aspirated, and that night her vitals were plummeting and they didn't know what was going to happen. There was no diagnosis, but I made such a fuss that at 1:30 in the morning, finally I was able to come in and see her. But of course, she didn't even know that I was there, because she was, you know, for all intents and purposes, out of it. But I was there nonetheless, and then I had to leave again. And she was diagnosed with aspiration pneumonia, given, we did agree to a treatment of the antibiotic and also HDC to replace her fluid loss. And she rallied, and that was May 19th. And then last week, she's been losing a lot of weight. Since January, she's lost 40 pounds. And this last month, she's lost 11 or 12 pounds. And last week, she stopped eating and had a lot of loose BMs and was not responsive. And I made a fuss again about coming in, and I was allowed 30 minutes on Thursday evening. And anyways, we don't have a diagnosis yet. They did some stool samples and a chest X-ray has been ordered. But you know, she is at the 20th percent on the palliative performance scale, I believe. And that brings me to one last point, and I'll turn it over to you, is this home is allowing palliative visits only when they deem the resident to have 3 days left to live. In other words, they're unresponsive, not eating or drinking, and they expect the resident to pass away within the next 3 days. And then that one family member would only be allowed to come in for a maximum of 2 hours within every 24-hour period. If at the end of 3 days the resident is still alive, you would, as a family member, be kicked out until the next time the resident starts to fail. And I know one family had this happen 3 times. And on the 3rd time, the mother, you know, did pass away. And probably the first 2 times the mother rallied because she had that attention from her daughter to encourage her to be comfortable and to eat a little bit and drink a little bit. But anyways, that was a very unfortunate situation. And I have no complaint about my mother's day-to-day care. This home has been very fortunate not to have any COVID cases inside the home. And the staff has been quite consistent. And staff that know my mom. So my issue is not with her care, but it is with the fact that her right to have me there has been denied.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Veronica, and I'm very, very sorry, first of all, on behalf of RNAO for what you have been going through. And I know that others will have questions. I don't want to ask questions now because I do believe that we have a couple of media. Are you comfortable with answering questions later on?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, I know that I have some questions too already, because one of the aspects that we are pushing is the issue of designated caregiver, right? And you would have fit exactly that. So let's move Susan to the next family member.
Yeah, how about we ask
we
Susan?
can ask them together questions.
Yeah, so how about we ask Susan Mills to go next, and then Robin, if you can double check that you don't have two devices going on at once giving the feedback, and then we'll try Robin again after Susan.
Okay.
Okay, so my mom is obviously in long-term care and has been for a year and a half now. She's wheelchair bound and she has dementia. I have twice asked to, like Veronica, I was in every day, multiple times a day, generally at supper when there's less staff because she does have issues eating. Although I didn't feed her, I did slow her down from putting everything in her mouth. I consider myself an designated essential caregiver. I have twice asked for it and been denied. The second time was again when my mother choked, similar to Veronica. My mother choked. They had to do compressions and suction, and I was allowed a 1-hour visit, and then it was back to window visits. So I do go down every day to see her. I can see the cognitive decline. I can see the physical decline. And I'm just trying to get in.
I'm so sorry, Susan. We decided to do this conversation, we call it, because my colleagues started to get a lot of emails, and then I started to get a lot of emails, some of you guys. And each one of you has experiences. These are not stories, experiences that are so heart-wrenching. And we as nurses and as people, as human beings, as daughters, as sisters, as spouses, can put ourselves in your shoes. And I keep saying to my colleagues, I don't know how I would react. I probably will just go and storm in. So I tip my hat to you guys for the level-headed way that you are presenting. And it's difficult for us to understand, and hopefully this will push further action and quickly. So we will keep questions for a little bit, Susan and Veronica. Robin, let's try to see if you can.
Okay. Can you hear that?
Maybe, Robin, maybe you can call Olivia, maybe you can send her the phone number and she can connect by phone.
Sure, Robin, I'll email you.
Okay.
That's good, just in case. Very good.
So we have
Susan,
Joyce. Joyce is interested in saying something.
Very good, thank you. We are honored to have so many family members joining and willing to talk. People many times are afraid of speaking up. And please know that we are on your side, at your side, and we will be pushing together for this notion of essential family caregiver, because there is no rhyme or reason why a person from outside that is paid can come, but you cannot, in our view. So just to advance a bit of where we're moving with this. So Robin, we will let you by phone.
And in the time being, we'll connect with Joyce because she's
fantastic.
ready.
And Robin, let us know when you're ready, when you can connect. Fantastic. Yes.
So for me, my brother is in long-term care. His home also has no COVID outbreak, which is really good. My whole push for that designated essential care or essential support person is because I care for somebody who has told me that if he goes into a seizure that's life-threatening, I am not to call 911 because he doesn't, there's no guarantee that I can be with him at the hospital. So the situation is very similar. I do all of his care when he's in hospital. I make sure that his meds are proper because they always make some errors, even though they've got these great systems not to do that. So for me, the designation is really important, that it can be, that essential visitor was very narrow when it happened in March, and nobody has strayed away from changing that. They have brought in visitor designations in hospitals, but not for other settings. And I think it's really important that that is across all care settings.
Yeah.
We know of people who have children and they can't go in and visit their children. So I think it's a designation that if we can get it somehow into that visitor definition, that we can solve that problem. The only thing is that the health minister is saying that it's up to the individual facility because they're an autonomous organization and they can make their own rules. So that's why the circle's happening. You know, it's not my job, it's their job. It's not my responsibility, it's theirs. So if we can find some way to fix that, and I think if we all can work together, I think that's how we can make that change happen.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you. And your brother is very fortunate to have you.
Thank you.
We'll just do a check-in to see if Robin's available to speak. And if not, we have a couple of questions.
We will let first the questions from media. If you are okay, Susan, please.
Sure.
Is
I'm
Robin-
actually not sure which ones are media. I have.
We will ask, just 1 second.
Sure.
Robin, are you good to present? I don't know if she can hear us.
I can still see her on camera. It doesn't look like she's joined by
Robin?
yet.
Can you join us?
I'm here.
No, by phone.
No,
No, this is not
really,
working. It's not working, Robin. If you can disconnect from the webinar and take the phone that Olivia just sent to you, that will be good. Okay, I believe, let's see, do we have media available? I believe Liz, let Liz ask questions. I know Liz was going to join. Olivia?
I don't see her here.
Well, there
By
are two
phone, she's
Elizabeths.
joining by phone, Olivia.
Yeah. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes,
great.
we can.
Oh, good. I was sorry. I was
You can introduce
emailing.
yourself so people know who you are, Liz. Thank you.
Apologies, Doris. It's Liz Braun here from the Toronto Sun. I was muted, but typing desperately.
And
So
I
I'm
need
happy.
to tell you, for the families, that Liz Brown has been a tremendous ally. One of the best reportings, those of you that follow the media, that have been done in relationship to long-term care have come from Liz, including on the weekend. Like really, she has been on top of this, so I'm really thrilled that you are with us, Liz.
Oh, that's very kind, Doris. I just basically try to keep up with you. Let me put it that way. I'm sort of stunned by the stories that we've just heard, and I'm frankly wasn't sure I was going to be able to keep it together. I don't understand. As you said, Doris, I think I would just bust through the door. I don't really understand how people can be prevented in this fashion, particularly in the first case, Veronica, when paid staff were accepted. Are you telling me that these can't be changed by one word from the minister?
Well, Can I just interrupt and answer the question?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Veronica.
So Doug Ford on June 11th in his press release or his press conference said when he unveiled the outdoor visit program that at the end of the day, it's up to the home.
That is the case.
So the issue is that the directive does allow for me to come in, and it always has. It's how that directive is interpreted. And each licensee interprets it to suit themselves. They have their own bias. And for me to get in, my issue is with the licensee. Now, I have given them a demand letter with a lawyer, and that wasn't successful. So we are planning another strategy, but that's what it's going to take. The home has the right to refuse me, unless, well, let's put it this way. We know that toddlers get away with what you allow them to, and so do bullies in a schoolyard. And people get away with what they're allowed to get away with until they're challenged. And I have written and spoken with the Ministry of Health Action Line, with the Patient Ombudsman, with the Ontario Ombudsman, with inspectors, and they cannot make the licensee change their actions.
So I want to comment on that, Liz and Veronica, for a second. If we were ever to need to stand in a court, which we would if any of you need, and in this case for sure. So the directive from Dr. Williams, Liz, said exactly what Veronica is saying. You know, this is what the description is. Designated family caregivers can come, but at the end of the day, the decision is the home. What here is so striking, and I had not heard it before, and I think it's outrageous, Veronica, is that if a family pays a caregiver, the caregiver can come. But if a family, one of them wants to come, and with your example of you being self-bubble, you being living alone, you know what I mean? It's just outrageous, outrageous. Okay.
But okay, but Veronica, isn't your concern that there are things going on that they don't want you to see? Because this is just bizarre.
Well, I can only think that that's the only reason, because families are the canary in the coal mine. Families are the ones who call the ministry action line that generate the only inspections that have been going on in the last year have been, you know, aside from the nine in quality inspections, all the other inspections have been because of complaints to the Ministry of Health Long-Term Care Action Line. Those calls are made by family members. And so they don't want us to, they just don't want to see us there. And also they don't trust families. They don't trust that we're going to keep our mask on. They basically don't trust that we're going to go just to the resident's room. It's really a power and control thing. And
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's what it is.
It's just remarkable to hear your experience. It's like being told that you live in some third world country. I've never heard anything like this.
But even in a developing country, you would trust the families, Liz, because I mean, who will want their loved one to be healthy more than a family? You know what I mean? So it makes no sense. Only the issue of the eyes and the ears. And our rationale for pushing the designated caregiver is number one, for the love that residents need, the love that families have for them, the limited time that is left because they are, you know, at an older age for the most, the hands-on care that you guys support, and you just mentioned that, and also in a way we took the safety valve of surveillance. Yes, you are the eyes and the ears, and it's nothing wrong because it's to the benefit of everybody else. like you should be partners in care. And
Collaborative.
yeah. So
Collaborative,
we're
yeah.
very sad that you're not seen as partners in care.
Yes.
Yours, please.
I don't have any further questions. I just hope that I can write about this in an adequate fashion so that people understand what's actually going on. You know, there've been all those cheerful pictures of window visits and all these happy face things of how people are coping, and obviously that is not the situation.
Well, and just imagine also, Liz, the extra, what's that? The extra expense that is being put for you, Veronica, to need to go to a lawyer. To need to go to a lawyer to see your mother, like, makes no sense.
Well, and technically it's my mother's right. I don't have any rights. It's my mother. So it's my mother's money that she has to spend to get a lawyer to represent her, because the court is the only one that will be able to adjudicate it, unless Dr. Williams, and he knows, I've written to him. I even dropped a package off at Doug Ford's home on the May long weekend. They know, and they are just willfully ignoring our—
Veronica, did you receive any answer from Dr. Williams?
No.
Okay, do me a favor tonight. Send me on an email those materials, because I will get an answer. I can tell you that.
Okay.
Please
Yeah.
do. Please do send me that, whatever you send to them, the link, and I will send to the Premier, to Dr. Williams, and to Minister Fullerton. And I will tell them that you presented at our event, and RNAO is disturbed by what we heard. Can he please respond to you, because you have not received a response? When you send this to me, do put that you have not received a response. I commit tonight, I will send that. This evening, I will send that to them.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'd be glad to. And the thing is that Dr. Williams, like all the other doctors, I don't know why there are not more doctors. We have the support of Dr. Stahl and Dr. Arya.
Dr. Stahl will very soon, Dr. Stahl, Nathan, and Samir, and several of us are going to put a document out about this issue of designated family caregivers. It's a matter of days. In fact, we wanted him to present today, and he couldn't present today, but in August, we will have him for sure. But we don't have time to wait, so that's why we went ahead anyways with this meeting, because if we don't fix this in the summer, when it comes wave 2 and the winter, if now you cannot do that, then when?
Yeah, and it's do no harm. So for the Dr. Williams knows his directive is confusing. He could change it with a clearer directive.
Oh, for sure. And they can intervene, maybe if they cannot in a general way, at least in your situation, to start with at least people that are, desperate, which is many of you. But I mean, yeah, it's unbelievable. It's shocking. Yeah. And I'm sorry you have not received an answer. That's just, yeah.
Well, I was actually, Sue Ann Levy did a story on me in May 15th, Liz. So there was an article then, and I had a letter to the editor and the Sun published in April. And so I do feel supported by the media. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, it's funny because I asked my editor if he wanted Sue Ann to be on this call instead of me tonight, because she has been working so hard on the long-term care situation. And she's, as you say, has written about how bad it is. But I don't know, I guess what concerns me is that if there's this reluctance still for any family visitors, for a family caregiver, that means that the problems that cause the issues that caused all these problems in the first place are perhaps still not being addressed properly in terms of PPE, staffing, etc., isolation, and so forth.
Liz, staffing, we can tell you ourselves, for sure is not being addressed. This is why, so Susan, I know that we will not be able to get to everything, so I'm going to advance at least some pieces.
Sure.
So you all need to know that July 31st of 2020, this July 31st, Minister Fullerton needs to table a report in the legislature on the adequacy of regulated staff in nursing homes. And this comes out, if you remember, there was a inquiry that started 2 years ago, the Gillies inquiry, and Justice Gillies issued a report last July 31st to 19, where she gave 80-something recommendations. One of them was that by July 31st, 2020, Minister Fullerton needed to table a report in the legislature. So what we are asking for that is a overall change in the staffing. So right now, nursing homes get about 2.7 to 2.9 paid hours of care for residents. We're asking for 4. And Catherine, if you can put that slide, we will share with people. Meanwhile, we can see if, here you go. We can share that slide to share with people so what it is, so you guys can see it. Go for it, Catherine. Catherine?
Thank you, Doris. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to start now speaking about a solution that RNAO has proposed called the Nursing Home Basic Care Guarantee. And really, it's a solution that ensures the minimum hours of care are received by appropriate staff to ensure resident safety and quality of life in long-term care. So it has many components to it, and it also builds on evidence of 35 earlier reports that have been released over previous 21 years that also speak to the systemic failings in long-term care and the dire need for regulated staffing and funding redo in long-term care sector. So the first component of this basic care guarantee is a staffing formula, which means that each resident shall receive 4 worked hours of direct nursing and personal care each day. That's within a 24-hour period of 48 minutes of RN care, which is regulated, 60 minutes of RPN care, which is also regulated, and 132 minutes of PSW care, which is unregulated care. And in addition to that, we're asking for each nursing home to have 1 nurse practitioner per 120 residents in the role of attending NP or director of clinical care. And we know there are currently 60 nurse practitioners out of 626 nursing homes in the province. And nurse practitioners do have a huge hand in improving the quality of care for residents. So we have a long way to go, and we're starting by asking for 1 MP per 120 residents, followed by 1 full-time RN specializing in infection prevention and control. And we know that 1 full-time RN is nothing compared to what hospitals have. In hospitals, there are teams that work on infection prevention and control. So we believe that asking for just 1, not only during COVID, but for the long time, will really help to improve those infection control and prevention practices and ensure that best practices are being applied by all staff.
Before you move, Catherine, I want to answer to something that Kelly posted. I think Kelly or Susan, someone posted. This is not instead of family caregivers being there, but this relates to the issue that you were talking before, that perhaps is because of staffing that they're not allowing people in because the staffing is so deficient. You're right, that's one of the big problems, right? So we believe that we need to push in all the cylinders. Now is the time, and we say this to families in particular and to the media. If we don't take the devastating disaster, quite frankly, that took place in Ontario, and I say Ontario because Ontario is 80% of all deaths have been in nursing homes, vis-a-vis 40% in OECD, right? So if we don't at least use the learnings of that devastating disaster now for better staffing, for families as partners in care, for PPE first in nursing homes because they're more vulnerable, for quality of life programs that address the physical and emotional. If we don't succeed now, we will never succeed. This is, we see it at RNAO as the last kick in the can. 35 reports in 21 years. The time is now to fix it. Go for it, Catherine. We get very passionate about this because we are just desperate.
We do. Thank you, Doris. And I will add to that. We know that majority of residents in long-term care have complex health needs, chronic conditions, many comorbidities, mental health acuity. So really, we believe that we need to bridge the gap in staffing and starting with this basic care formula, which also includes some really critical human resource policies. So I'll ask Susan if you can advance the slide, please. So we have also included in the nursing home basic care guarantee a plan that will help to stabilize the long-term care workforce. And that means that the following policies are not only mandated, but also funded by government, which includes that staff are to work in only one long-term care facility where they have compensation that is equal to those who are employed by hospitals, and they are offered full-time employments with benefits if they choose to work full-time. And we're saying this because we believe these three policies are really critical to enabling continuity of care for residents, as well as improving the staff retention and removing the need to work in multiple locations, which we know many RNs and RPNs are doing. And as many as 45% of PSWs are employed by 2 to 3 employers, which really is an issue even before COVID began for reasons of continuity of care. And because in terms of infection prevention and control, it is critical for workers to be in one facility only, COVID or not COVID. That also applies to flu season and other seasons as well. So those are key formulas and policies that we believe should be included and mandated by government by July 31st. So we have issued, as of June 9th, an action alert on the issue where we are asking members of the public, RNAO members, to put forward their voice and to sign on to this nursing home basic care guarantee, because we know it's the next necessary step to make sure we're protecting Ontario's older adults who do call long-term care their home. So if you are compelled, if you care about the seniors of Ontario, we're asking you to let Minister Fullerton, Premier Ford, and the Staffing Study Advisory to know that the nursing home basic care guarantee will get us there to make sure that residents receive the care they deserve, which is quality and safe care. So far, we have about 3,500 individuals who have signed on to the action alert, and our goal is to get to 10,000 signatures by July 31st. So we are really asking you to use your voice to sign the action alert, which is hopefully going to be shared in the chat. Olivia, I'm not sure if you're able to post it or if you already have.
Yeah, I think she's just about to.
Perfect. So we urge you to go to the website and to check this out and to have your voice be heard and advocate for this guarantee for Ontario seniors.
You know, we cannot keep saying that we support seniors and that this is their home, that nursing homes is their home, and that we support the families. And yet we have done really almost nothing in the last 20 years, almost nothing. Like when you look what improvements we have done in nursing homes, yes, the new homes have private rooms, but we grandfather, grandparent, grandmother, whatever we want to call, all the old ones. So you cannot isolate people if they need to. And we're not just talking COVID. Talk about diarrhea, talk about other things. Talk about privacy to be with the family member. We say that this is their home, but then they're not part of the health system transformation. And that's the other piece that maybe if you put the ECCO, I can briefly speak with people about what that means. So we released a report on May 12th, which is the day of the birth of Florence Nightingale, because Florence Nightingale kept talking about people and their home. In fact, she said we need to abolish hospitals. We are not going that far. We are saying home is important, is where people live. And if we think that nursing homes is the home where people live, how come they're not a mandatory piece of Ontario health teams? So in this report, which Olivia will send you the link, we are saying in recommendation 6, we are saying that nursing homes need to be a mandatory piece of the Ontario health teams. These groups that are being formed now, that there are 24 already, because then no one can silo off nursing homes. No one can forget nursing homes, which is what happened this time. In fact, you know, everything collapsed except of hospital care during COVID. Home care was not functioning. Primary care went virtual as much as possible, but didn't function fully. And nursing homes, well, you know better than us what happened in nursing homes. So we really want to bring nursing homes as part of community care, the same as for me is my home. For residents in nursing homes is their home and should be considered their home. Hence the issue of the family caregiver as a partner in care is critical. You know, you wouldn't close the door of your own home unless you want. So if your mother doesn't want to see you, fine. Or if your brother doesn't want to see you, fine, it's their right. But if they want to see you, that's the only home they have. How dare we close the door to you? So we are coming from that perspective. Can we get Robin, or is that working?
Yeah.
Yes, I think Robin's ready to go. And then after
Oh,
Robin,
good.
we have Alice.
Fantastic. And then Kelly, I know, wanted to mention a few comments. And I know Patricia from Toronto Grace that they're opening the doors already. She can share it. And we can parallel if what they're doing there, why it's not possible to do somewhere else. Go for it, Robin.
Okay, thank you very much, and I really appreciate being invited onto this, Doris, and I definitely appreciate your support. It's been 4 months yesterday since we were shut out of the home. So for my particular case, or my mom's particular case, I moved her into long-term care last July. It's almost a week from now. And it was because of caregiver burnout. She had her first and second stroke and lived with me. We had home care until I, just broke from that and thought that I was moving her into a 5-star resort based on the website. What I felt bad about was that she wouldn't have her dog and be around family, but that I knew that she would be getting 24-hour nursing care and events, and she wouldn't rely on me to be her sole entertainment source. So I took a little break at that point, and my younger sister took over until my mom had her third stroke 3 months after moving into the long-term care home. And I will say that I blame the long-term care home for that third stroke. So she went into hospital, and 30 days later, they pushed her back to the long-term care home, saying that it's a nursing home, it's an extension of the hospital. They are more than capable of taking care of her. But at this point, she is now 100% dependent for all aspects of life. She couldn't swallow at that point. The speech therapist at the hospital had been working with us and taught us exercises so that we could do those with her at the nursing home, because it's not a service that they offer. We were so desperately trying to get her to the point of passing a swallow test so that she could at least be on soft foods, but she wasn't there yet at the 30 days. So she has a suction machine at her bedside. PSWs aren't allowed to use it. 2 RPNs for 100 beds. They were very, very busy doing meds the entire shift. To get them to suction as needed, when needed, was not really feasible, and 1 RN for 100 beds. So if a PSW came around and saw that my mom was in distress, she would have to find somebody around the building to try and come and do suctioning, which isn't very timely. So my younger sister and I were doing split shifts that amounted to approximately 10, like no less than 10 hours a day, sometimes more than that. And whether it's being suctioned or being her call bell, because she didn't have the strength she had some mobility in her right hand and her right arm, but not enough strength to press a call bell, not even one of the super sensitive ones. So if, you know, there was and she has a feeding tube as well in her stomach. And there was a lot of issues with the feeding. She had digestive problems, so it turned out that every evening around 9:30 she'd start to get into distress, and I couldn't understand why. And even one night she threw up. I pressed the call bell and I started suctioning, repositioning, clearing her airways. 10 minutes later, somebody came along, and it was a PSW, so she wouldn't even have been able to help at that point anyways. So I stuck around and I called my sister, and we turned off the feed. There was concern because she's a type 2 diabetic that family can't be, turning off her feed because she's needs it. And I'm like, that's fine, but if she can't handle the feed, then her life is in danger. So we have to try and find a balance. And this is where my sister and I were also very heavily involved in not just medications and the symptoms from the medications. Like my younger sister would investigate every single medication, and then if it said swelling or constipation, we would be all over it looking for those things, early signs of any issues to get back with the doctor. So working with the dietitian, we eventually got to a feeding cycle, which isn't normal for people on a liquid feed. It's 4 hours on, 4 hours off. Digestive medication 30 minutes before the on cycle. And the 4 hours off in between was as critical as the on, and to get in a 24-hour period her minimum daily nutritional requirements so that her organs wouldn't fail. And thing is that my mom is quite aware in her brain. She listens to absolutely everything that's going on. She doesn't have dementia. She does her best to talk at times. It comes out like we understand a lot of what she says just by looking at her facial expressions. And we also use her thumb. Like, we ask her a question, are you in pain? Move your thumb. So in, trying to understand what's going on with her, the staff don't always take the time or know. And, I've even found this for people who are, my mom's nonverbal and has been not overly communicative even after her second stroke, and the staff, the PSWs that would come to the house and the ones at the long-term care home tend to talk to her like she's a baby just because she doesn't talk back very much. And they also get right into her face and talk really loud because they, seem to think that she's deaf. So I find that very frustrating when people talk around her. And whenever was in the room with her at the long-term care home, if somebody came around and there was discussion, I would always try to engage my mom in that discussion because, she's still there. She's just trapped in a body that's not really working. And the thing with the stroke is that it's not necessarily declining. There's with motivation and determination, you can get back functionality and retrain. So these are things that my sister and I were working with her on because she did very clearly express the fact that she didn't want to have her peg tube. She wanted to eat again. So, working with the spoon in her mouth to get her to swallow was important. And now 4 months later, without any of that work, it's highly unlikely that's ever going to happen now. As well as she couldn't answer a phone. She couldn't make a phone call. She can't turn on her TV. She can't turn up the volume. These type of engagements, like a long-term care home has some events, but they really cater to people who can get themselves to the event and participate. So my mom wasn't getting involved in those things unless, like, I showed up for my evening shift every single day, 7 days a week. And I would take her out, and whether it's an event or whether it be just walking around the halls so she could look out the windows and stuff. And quite often I was like the Pied Piper because there was a lot of seniors who were bumbling around, and it's like, come on, let's go for a walk. And I'd have a trail of wheelchairs behind me through the halls in the evening. So I think it was Veronica who said, I was very much part of the care team and very much, involved with the staff. And a lot of the staff would say to my sister and I that they so respected what we did and wished that more family would be as involved in the care of their family. So when it came down to lockdown time, we definitely asked to be essential caregivers, and we were told no exceptions. So then the next day I went in and said, could I put a two-way talk camera in my mom's room so that I could stay involved in her day-to-day care and be able to talk to her at will 24 hours a day. It's a private room, there's doors, and they said no.
Why not?
And they said, well, they gave me all kinds of excuses. They said it was a privacy issue, which it's not, and they said that it's illegal, and it's not, and they said that you can't record audio, and you can. And then they said, well, you can have an industrial camera that isn't even internet capable, that you'd have to put an SD card into your laptop to look at the footage. And I'm like, you do realize we're locked out? No response back to that one. I escalated up to Extendicare Corporate a couple of times. I got media coverage. I had a marketplace story done on me. I also had a Toronto Sun story with Sue-Ann Levy. I went back to Corporate Extendicare, both from essential visitor as well as for the camera. Patient ombudsman did her the best to try and help me, and it came back as a hard no. Their reason is no exceptions, erring on the side of caution. It's a very serious virus, and if we let you, then we have to let everybody else. I've been in an absolute panic for my mom for 4 months, just because, as you say, the amount of staff to resident ratio is very, very low. They can't give my mom the attention that she needs, which is why we were going in to augment that care. Even things like ear cleaning aren't basically standard. I will say that most recently I had an issue where my mom was declining last Monday, visually declining for 4 days. I emailed the director of care begging, at what point do you call her palliative that I can come in? And they didn't really respond to that question. I said, when was the last time she was outside? They did say that they would try to get her out once a day. It got worse. The nurses were even saying that she was declining, and then the doctor said to me last Monday night outside the building that he figured that because she was refusing mouth care, that she has decided she doesn't want to live anymore, and that he recommends pulling her feed. And I said to him that she's obviously depressed, lonely. You can see by the look on her face, she's suffering. Why can't I go in? Like, she wants to live. And he said, how do you know? Maybe she's changed her mind. I said, well, could I go inside and talk to her? And he said, no, there's no exceptions. There's very strict visitor policy. And I'm like, how am I supposed to find out if she wants to live or not over Skype or through a window? He didn't answer it. He just said, very strict. I went home that night and I emailed absolutely everybody and their brother in an absolute panic, and I put a post up on Twitter that kind of went wild. And the next morning I started getting multiple phone calls for the home that I could go in and see my mom. So I went in, and it took 10 Q-tips to clean her ears from yellow wax. I pulled a very large mucus ball out of her nose. And I slowly worked on her mouth with Q-tips and diluted mouthwash, and she opened her mouth for me, but then clamped down on her left side. And I said to her, are you in pain? Move your thumb. And she moved her thumb. So I called the nurse in, and she said, I told her, and she said, well, I could give her Tylenol. And she said to my mom, do you want Tylenol? And my mom said, yes. So
that night, then I found out that she'd thrown up 3 days in a row. And that night she threw up again, and the new night nurse, a young new nurse, called in the middle of the night and said that she thought my mom threw up and she thought she should go to the hospital. She wasn't breathing right. So thank God she went to hospital, and she has dehydration. And so within 24 hours, she is talking up a storm and laughing, and she wants to come home. So I don't mean the long-term care home. So I don't really know what to do at this point. I am putting up a pretty big stink with the hospital that I don't want her to go back there. It's not going to be easy. They're pushing back, but I'm not going to quit because I look at it as a death sentence to put her back to that long-term care home, and I can't do that to her.
Yeah, what a difficult situation, Robin. And also you don't have the strength to bring her home for the long run.
I'll do whatever I have to for her.
Yeah, I understand. And yeah, not the situation. If that home would decide that families can reunite with a designated family caregiver, would you put her back there? Would she agree? Would you agree?
Well, I would, because she's definitely I would, with a condition that I need a doctor that values life is a big problem that I don't know how to deal with at that home.
So that specific home, but
Yeah.
Does she like that home?
She doesn't really want to be in a home. She's depressed and lonely, and they don't do much for somebody in my mom's condition. So it was a lot of work for my sister and I, but you know, I'm not going to give up on her. I would do anything for her, and yeah.
So that has to do, maybe for a second, we are going to ask Brittany to share about Brittany about the home care reform in the province, and also what we are recommending for that, Brittany, because that links, like if Robin could have more hours of home care, you know, government paid, the same as they support long-term care or hospital care, that would facilitate things. And supposedly the government says that's where they're moving. Brittany, you want to share a bit about this new act so people can know the pieces that they can rely on and push for?
And Doris, just before Brittany speaks, could I just let you know it's almost 5 to 8.
Okay,
then,
let's do Brittany. Let's
okay.
do Brittany, even if we go 5 minutes over or 10, please.
Okay.
So we will do
Doris,
Brittany.
am I still muted, or can you hear me?
Yes.
It's Liz. Okay, I have to ring off and finish this story.
You go for it, Liz, and push.
I've got to
push all the way you can.
Like to thank you, Doris, but I'm really grateful to the people who spoke about their personal situations. I will do my very best to join Doris in this fight for you. And thank you. It was an honor to hear you.
Liz, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure, of course.
Will you be quoting me in your story?
I think I'm going to quote anonymously. I'm going to say family members, or do you specifically wish to be quoted?
No, I would appreciate the anonymity. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say, because I think it's very easy to express some of the things that, you know, the specific stories all have some common themes. Exactly. Which are neglect and just heartrending treatment. I'm so sorry.
No, I appreciate it. I didn't want to ruffle more feathers at this point. So thank you.
No, I won't tell you what I sympathize. I will simply put it like that. And thank you.
And
Okay.
Veronica, if Liz wants at some point to reconnect, can you, 2 things I need to ask. These webinars are recorded. That's number one. And usually we
fantastic.
post them. So you don't want us to post it?
Oh, no, that's okay. But
Okay.
I mean,
On
that's
the story, it's a different, perfect.
yeah. If somebody takes the trouble to find this webinar, go for it.
No, I think that's great that they're recorded. That's good to know, Doris. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to say good night to all of you and thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz. Take care.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Let's hear Brittany for a few minutes, please, because this is linked to your situation, Robin. And if this were true, that the government took the top limits and they will provide more home care, this could be very hopeful for you. Let's go for it, Brittany.
Thank you, Doris. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So Bill 175, as Doris was alluding to, is the Connecting People to Home and Community Care Act from 2020. So this was introduced by the Minister of Health, Christine Elliott, at the end of February and has moved quite quickly actually through the Ontario legislature. So we at RNAO applaud the government in their effort to reform the home and community care sector and the outdated legislation from 1994 that we're currently using. We agree with that decision to modernize and integrate home and community care with the rest of the broader health system under both Ontario Health and joined with the Ontario Health teams. In June, you can see that lower left picture there. Doris presented to the Standing Committee on the Legislative Assembly to provide feedback on Bill 175. And in this presentation, Doris shared with the committee that the solution is to strengthen home and community care and really anchor our health system in primary care. And that vision was foundational to the ECCO 3.0 report that Doris spoke to earlier in this webinar. RNAO followed up this hearing with a written submission to the committee, offering 16 recommendations and commentary to ensure that the act reflected a true government commitment to a transformed health system and to really strengthening home and community care. We framed our position to acknowledge the current context of COVID-19, given that home and community care services were largely forgotten and the vulnerable populations really suffered, like we've talked about, especially those also that depend on home care services. The new home and community care regime, we really feel, must reflect the lessons learned from COVID-19 that completely overwhelmed our long-term care sector, excluded families, impacted the health of thousands because several primary home and community care services were deemed non-essential. And we really do need a more integrated and balanced health system now and in the future beyond COVID. Just in conclusion, Ontarians really want to stay and receive care in their homes. And Robin, you talked about that with your mom. And for as long as possible, that tends to be the common thread. Given the crisis with hallway health care in our hospitals and the mounting wait times for long-term care, it's really important to us that the government increase the public funding to home care services by 20% to enable increased access to home care. In addition, RNAO wrote about in our submission and talked about the 4,500 RN care coordinators that are working in LINS, the current local health integration networks that will be dissolving.
So Brittany, so people don't know, so let me very briefly tell you. So this province forever has had 4,500 care coordinators, most of them are ends, 90% of them are ends, that they were on the LINS. And then they restructure. And now we are saying these care coordinators need to move ASAP to primary care to enable really community care to be strengthened. So people like Robin could sustain the mother at home if that's what the family wants and that's what the resident wants. And also residents, quite frankly, that live alone. Like take me 20 years from now, I'm going to bring people to my home, hopefully. But if the government can help, right? Otherwise it becomes very heavy for people, right? 24/7. And listen, Manitoba is doing a lot of that. BC provides tons of home care. I had a friend that till the last day she was home with multiple sclerosis. She was supported 3 times a day, people came to her home, government funded. So it is possible. Hospitals cost a lot more than that. So sorry, Brittany, just
That's
wanted
okay.
to.
I just have one more thing to wrap up, but I really do encourage you all to read our full submission and all of the 16 recommendations that we build on, and just follow the RNAO website, or in general. In the next few weeks, the bill will be debated by the members of provincial parliament. So we will follow that closely and update you. But in closing, RNAO really, we agree with the bill and its intent, but we really want to focus on the fact that all Ontarians deserve to live and age with dignity, and robust home and community care sector is really essential to meeting that goal, as are everything that we've talked about today with long-term care, including the patients and their families, and putting them in the center. So that's all I have.
So, thank you, Brittany. Susan McNeil, I don't know, I see other families. Maybe we will do a second round again in August with other families, but I do want to ask something for now, and that's from our long-term care coordinators. And Heather, if we can coordinate that, Veronica and Robin and the people that spoke today, that really they can become part of our working group on how we are going to move forward the issue of designated family caregivers, because I think it will help you see your needs met to the families that spoke, and will help guide us in a really authentic way to respond to the needs that we heard today. Is that agreeable to people to meet? You know, it's not, we don't meet every day. They do the homework. You kind of support to check the pulse, to make sure that this makes sense. This is supporting where we want to move. And to do that within, this week, next week, and the following week, because we want to move sooner rather than later with all of this. We can't afford the whole summer being like this.
Could I say one more thing?
For sure.
Thank you. So even though my mom's in the hospital right now, I still don't have visitation rights, and I still think that that's really unfortunate that they made it sound like there was visitation in the hospitals, but they are very limited as well. So here my mom has been alone for 4 months and has suffered a lot from that, and yet I still can't get permission to be with her at the hospital. And I'm in the same position as Veronica. Like, I don't even have a group of 2. I live at home. By myself. I don't even go to the grocery store. I get groceries delivered. I don't go to the gas station because I'm 10 minutes away. I got a whole bunch of gas cans filled up 2 months ago, and I'm extremely low risk, so it's very frustrating for me that all these untrained volunteers, uncertified new hires, the teachers union staff, everybody can go into a home, but yet the family can't. So it's something seriously wrong here.
So Robin, you are not alone. Let me tell you, I know that we have one of our own staff at RNAO. I don't know if my colleague Carrie Edwards is on the call. I know she was going to join, and she's on the same situation with her father. We all know, you know what I mean? You don't need to make an effort even to convince us. It's heart-wrenching what's going on, and we need to change it. We need to change it.
Thank you, Doris.
Yeah, we need to change it. So Heather, I know you are online. If you can take, I know that PG will have Veronica's email, or Veronica, if you can write your email. Robin, I know I have yours, so we don't need yours. And Susan Mills, I believe.
Yep. Susan and Joyce, yeah.
Fantastic, and Joyce. And then those of you that didn't speak this time, anyways, and those of you that spoke this time too, we will reconnect. We are not letting go of this piece. In fact, you heard Liz say RNAO's commitment to the entire spectrum of issues in long-term care is a top priority of RNAO, and has been for a number of years, but this time we're not letting it go for a minute. We need, now is the time. My colleague Heather said to me one day, now is our time. And we say that to you, now is our time, and we are not going to let you down with this. We are not. So with that in mind, Patricia, we will ask you to present next time. By then you will have pictures with a lot of people, because I know that we are delayed. But if people can cheer for families and cheer for residents to reunite.
And
Olivia,
cheer for
can
the
you promote
action
that?
alert, Doris.
Sorry?
Cheer for the action alert.
And cheer for the action alert. We need, thank you, Imagine. We need everybody to respond to that action alert so that we get to the 10,000 that Susan wants. I go for 4,000 this week, and then
5,000.
Yeah, step by step, everybody counts.
Okay, very good. We need the mics on. Joyce, your mic needs to be on. Veronica, your mic. All the mics on, and we cheer for the families and for the action alert, so families can reunite. We need families to reunite with their loved ones, residents in nursing homes and in retirement homes. Reunite. 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 Reunite.
Reunite.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for so generously sharing with us.
Thank you for your sharing.
Thank you
Thank
to all of
you.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.